Today we are having session number 14 of our class, and we will talk about test documentation. And I can tell you that in terms of getting a job, test documentation is the single most important issue we have to be aware about. And we have two sessions about test documentation. So one is for one session is the one we have today, and next week we will have session number 15, which is also will be going to be devoted to test documentation. I asked you to do the quiz, and let me see what we have there. So how many people took part in it? Looks like not many, really. Do we have class next Monday, Memorial Day? So we have a good question. I have no problem with teaching Memorial Day. It's all about you guys. If you say we want the class, I'll teach the class. I have no problem with that. So you tell me. Okay, and so I'm looking at the quizzes, and there is one that says test documentation 1, and we have just 5 participants, which is quite miserable. But let's take a look. At least, guys, we have something to talk about. And my plan for today actually was to start looking at the questions and answers. If you remember that place on our webpage, portnow.com/data/QA questions and answers, we have a link here to the questions which are devoted to test planning and test documentation. So what I wanted to do, I just wanted to go question by question, just one by one here, and then we will look at the quiz, because the quiz covers those questions and maybe more than what we have on that page. So I see some discussion on the Skype. Some people say we want the class on Memorial Day, and some people say no class on Memorial Day. So we will see. So guys, you will discuss it. Okay. What is the test case? Set of conditions and or variables under which a tester will determine if a requirement upon an application is satisfied. That is a test case. We looked at that definition a lot. And let me do this. Let me run Notepad, and we will try to exercise our standard. I hope it became standard already. Approach to answering the question. So the question is, what is test case? Let me copy paste. Okay, copy. I will paste here. What is test case? Then we have 3 things about it. Thing number 1 is definition. And here is the definition. It says set of conditions and or variables under which a tester will determine if a requirement upon an application is satisfied. Okay, here is the definition. Then we have step number 2. We need details or examples maybe of something to illustrate. So illustration of what the definition is about, because what happens with definitions, guys, sometimes they are kind of generic in nature, and when people listen to you, they do not feel like it is practical. What you just said is practical. If you provide very practical definition, then it's not generic enough. So you run into the risk of coming with something very special, and other people might disagree with you. And the more special it is, so the more people might be in disagreement. So illustration. And then step number 3, we have to connect to our project experience. Connect to projects. That is one of the major reasons I want you to be on UTest, because UTest gives you lots of projects. And when you do actual projects, no matter how small, you run into specific situations, and so you can connect to those situations. And that is the major value of your ClickBerry project, because you run into many different things which you bring to the discussion. So when it comes to the test case, what can we say to clarify that, to illustrate? We are saying test case is the smallest possible test. Why? Why it is the smallest possible test? Because it can fail. It will pass or fail. It can fail in no more than one place. It cannot fail in two different places. If your test case can fail here and can fail there, you need two test cases, guys. And that is the definition we prefer. It doesn't mean that is the only definition or that is the only interpretation. I have video on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and type what is test case, you will see my video at the very top. And we look at 5 different definitions of test cases. So I'm bringing you what I believe is the best in that course. But again, it might differ. So we are saying, okay, it can fail in no more than one place. Good. Then it is bound to specific requirement. Specific requirement. No requirement, no test case. So test case cannot be about common sense stuff or anything like that. It is about requirement. We have requirement, we need test case to verify the requirement. That is how it works. Details. It is because some people say test case is like steps of how to test the application. So we are saying, wait a second, guys, test case is not about steps. Steps is about how you do the test case. But test case is a set of conditions and variables. It is a situation. So test case is 100% situational. And that situation allows you to verify the requirement. Definitely you might need some steps, because if you run the application, then you have to bring that application from base state, default base state, you have to bring it to the verifiable application state where you say failed or passed. So then you might need some steps. I do not personally like the word steps, because I do not want people to confuse steps to reproduce in a bug report with steps in a test case. So I'm saying we need an instruction on how to get from default base state to the verifiable application state. But that is why we are saying test case is it is a situational rather than steps to execute. It's not a procedure. Situational rather than steps to procedural. So it doesn't answer the question how. It answers the question of under which circumstances. So that is what test case is about. And then you will do lots of test cases for ClickBerry project, or maybe you did some test cases for UTest, and you just have to be careful, because in UTest, when they say test case, it has completely different meaning. In UTest, test case might be something which takes an hour to execute. It could be well-defined test procedure with lots of test cases under that. So lots of places where it might fail. But they use it. They use the word test case, which is outside of what we use. So you might also say, you know what? On one of the projects we worked, okay, test case would be something which takes an hour to execute. It depends. So that is what I would rather prefer. But I understand, and that is important. I understand the world is very diverse and it's very broad, and I'm personally, I'm fine if you have a different definition or different vision. By the way, what is your vision? What is your definition? How do you do that in your company? So I'm not connecting to your project because I'm not participating in your project, but when it comes to specific test cases, and guys, remember, you cannot get a job, you cannot really enter the job market without being ready to come up with a couple of test cases from your one of your projects. You have to be able to provide test cases, and when you do that, it's a part of your preparation. Make sure the test case tests the feature of your application, which everybody understands. If you talk about feature which nobody knows what it is about, guys, they're going to be lost. You do not want to lose them. If you lose them, they have no idea if you are good or not with test cases, but they know you are not a good communicator already. They do not feel comfortable with you. Okay, so guys, let's go to the next question. So it says, what does test case include? There are many questions about what's inside of the test case. So let me try to speculate a little bit. So here is the question we have in our list, but it could be. So it could be as well. What does test case include, or let's say which fields of the test case tester fills in at the time of planning. So when we just plan, we do not need actual result, and we do not need steps to fail pass. I mean, we cannot do that unless the application is running. So you have to pay attention which part of the test case, which situation related to the test case they are talking about. It might be, what is the structure? Okay, what is the structure of the test case? Or it might be, what are the most common fields of a test case format? So all of those questions are pretty much the same, but the danger here is it comes to subtle details. If you do not pay attention to subtle details, you run into kind of small problems. It doesn't mean the problems are big, but it's much better if you answer exactly the question rather than you answer the question which they didn't ask, or they asked similar but different question. So you do not want that. And when you look at the answers here, it says, okay, when planning for testing, okay, the test case contains test case ID, whichever format we are using for the ID. Then the purpose or title or description of the test case. It means what is exactly we want to test. What is exactly we want to test. An instruction on how to get from the application base state to verifiable application output or expected result. Okay, and then expected result. So how many fields? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 fields at the time of planning. At the time of execution, we have 2 more fields, actual result and pass-fail notification. So that's simple. And when they ask you questions, give me test cases for testing, God knows, login password dialog box or screen. You do not have to come up with all the steps of the test case. You come up with, and you don't even need test case ID, you just come up with the purpose. Purpose, 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 purpose. They do not ask you for steps. So anytime the question is, give me the test cases for doing this and this and this, you come up with the purpose or title or description. So what you want to test? You don't have to point to the steps. It's not what they are asking you. They are asking you for coverage. Which things you want to test, not how. Okay, and let's keep going. What is a test plan? Test plan is opposite to test case. Test case is the smallest document in software testing. Test plan is the largest document in software testing. Test case is about specific requirement being verified. Test plan is a battle plan. It's a strategic, most generic way of looking at how we're going to test the whole thing. So we don't care about details of specific feature, you know. It's about the whole thing. And in our definition, we have 4 keywords. We are saying the document that describes objectives, scope, approach, and focus of software testing effort. So I really suggest you to memorize those 4 words: objective, scope, approach, and focus of software testing effort. The second bullet here actually answers the point 2, details and illustration. So that is the job it does. It says, okay, the process of preparing a test plan is a useful way to think through the efforts needed to validate the acceptability of software product and whatever. You can read it. But the idea of that is when we develop the test plan, it helps us to get organized. If you think about business plan, let's say you start a business and you come with a business plan and you think, God, why would I waste my time developing that business plan because I have to change it once a week? Because I cannot plan today for 6 months, 1 year ahead. But you know what? Modifying the plan is fine. But as long as you have the plan, you modify eventually. So you are much closer to better understanding of what you want to achieve and how you're going to achieve that. That is the idea of test plan. Test plan is not iron-made. It is not going to stay the same, but it will change a lot. But that is that kind of document. And again, what else can we say about test plan? It is not developed by management only. Definitely people who develop the test plan are senior enough to understand the concept, the objectives, the scope, and the approach. So we have QA manager, we have team leads, we have project leads, we have senior QA people. But even if you are, let's say, entry-level person, they might give you a small piece, a couple of sentences, a paragraph, which relates to what you are doing. So we routinely put test plan in your resume, not meaning that you develop the whole test plan, but you contribute to development of the test plan. So it is very common to engage, all the members of the team in the test plan because we want them to be a part of the test plan. We want them to have that bigger vision of what the collective effort is about. Okay, what does test plan include? That list of things, which is ugly, guys, that is one of the ugliest you can imagine, it was taken from your book. So in your book, there is a page with all that stuff, and I would look at that as a wish list. So a specific test plan might have any combination of what we have in the list. My job was to give you the most critical pieces here. So software product overview is, I wouldn't say must, but it's very important to have the overview of the product. Testing priorities and focus. So I just bolded, selected something which your book gives. Scope and limitations of testing. Guys, it's important to understand the scope, and it's critically important to understand the limitations. If you do not understand the limitations, you will try to do something which you shouldn't be doing because you cannot do it anyway. The tools to be used, it is very important to have the right set of tools. If you do not have the right set of tools, your productivity might be close to zero. Personnel allocation. So what kind of skills do we need? Who does what? And it's not just personnel, it's also time. Time management. That is pretty much, see that project risk analysis. There is an interview question about risk analysis. It is answered here. So risk analysis for the project is a part of test plan, or could be the part of test plan, where we say, okay, we want to avoid certain risks, which are this and this and this and that, so we do not do too much of this, or we make sure we give enough attention to that. And again, it's not something you are going to develop yourself within the next year. But at least you understand the structure, and when it comes to interview questions, so you know what to say. Write test cases for text field. So we talked about that, and we said we have two different aspects there. So one aspect is how many characters we can type in. We call it capacity. So we might have up to 5 test cases for capacity. So one for in-between boundaries and the 2 test cases for each boundary. So that is the first one. Second one talks about 3 test cases for valid and invalid input, which are letters, digits, and special characters. So we have 3 test cases, and we have also additional test cases for exceptions. Let's say if some special characters are accepted and some special characters are not accepted, so then for each exception we need a test case. And sometimes functionality is attached to the text field, so then we test functionality separately. For example, in the last name field, you type Portnov and you start with lowercase character, and then software automatically makes it uppercase. The first letter makes it uppercase. So there is a functionality there. Or let's say you type in your email address and then it says email address is invalid. So there is a functionality there. So that is also something to be tested when we test text fields. Okay. What is test matrix? Our definition says it is a data collection mechanism. Let's talk a little bit more about test matrices. Okay. Let's go here, and we are saying, okay, what is test matrix? What is test matrix? The definition, okay, part 1, definition. We just copy paste from here. We are saying, okay, test matrix is a data collection mechanism. Okay, data collection mechanism. Good. Number 2, what is exactly for? I mean, what do you mean data collection mechanism? It provides a structure for testing the effect of combining 2 or more variables, circumstances, types of hardware, or events. Row and column headings identify the test conditions, and cells keep the results of test execution. Okay, let's put it here. Here is the more detailed explanation. So we are combining the effects of different things. And okay, can you give me an example? Oh, absolutely. So example would be cross platform and cross browser testing. Cross-browser testing of a web application. So in the application, for example, the application we tested, let's say the ClickBerry, we had Windows 7, then it was Windows XP, for example, and then we had Mac OS, and we also tested on, let's say, iPad. Okay, and then so what were the browsers? The browsers were Microsoft Internet Explorer, let's say 9. Then it was Firefox I don't know what is the version, let's say 3.6. I don't know, guys. It does matter to me. 3.6. And then it was a Chrome, whatever version of Chrome. And then it was Safari. And here is the example of cross-platform and cross-feature testing test matrix. Look what it says. It provides the structure, spreadsheet, it provides the structure for testing the effect of combining two variables. Which variables? Operating system is one variable and browser is another variable. Okay. And row and column headings, so we see them on the screen, identify the test conditions, which ones, okay? And the cells keep the result of test execution. Not necessarily results. You can say pass, fail, but you can also say done, 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 or tested, 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 and so on. So that is an example of test matrix. And also that is an example of how we answer the interview questions. We provide the definition. Some people think if they memorize the definition, so they are okay. They are not okay. They are in trouble. Because they come with the definition and the next question will show they have no idea what the definition is about. They are already in trouble. I mean, maybe they are one step, from the trouble compared to having no idea what the definition. So they just made one step. But it's not just about making one step. It's about making all three steps. Okay. It's like getting a job doesn't make you successful. Keeping the job makes you successful. And if you grow on that job, it makes you really successful. That is the ultimate goal of doing that. We build a career. We do not just keep a job. We do not just get our paycheck, but we grow professionally. So that is the success we are talking about. Now, okay. So where do we go now? We look at, okay. If there are so many settings or options to choose, how do you write test cases? And what we are saying here, we are saying the first priority is we focus on the most common potential scenarios. So the word scenario here has a human meaning, not professional meaning. So possible, uses of software. So something which is more generic in nature should get more attention. If the probability of something happening is so rare, I mean, it's very low, it has less priority to you. So then you cover with test cases the most generic things, the most common things. Second priority here is positive testing. Before you start looking at negative test cases, guys, you have to make sure the positive pass. Sometimes you are so much limited in time, you just have no room for negative testing. It happens. But remember, it's not about finding bugs, doing negative things. You start with doing positive things. You start with positive when you execute, and you start with positive when you plan, when you decide which documentation you start with, what kind of documentation. That question comes from next one. Besides test case and test plan, what documents are required to write? That question comes from an actual interview. It is reported by the student, and I think what really happened at the time of interview, they talked about test cases and test plans, and then interviewer said, okay, besides test case and test plans, which we already discussed, okay, so what else? In reality, when it comes to questions like that, they would probably ask you, okay, would you please list all types of test documentation you did at some point, or you consider to be important, that kind. So what are the typical test documents, or typical documents we do in QA, that kind. And definitely test case and test plan, you start with test plan and test case. They are the most important and most common. But then we have checklists. So what is checklist? For example, acceptance checklist. Let's say you get new release. And you have to do some acceptance process. We can call it smoke test, we can call it release acceptance test, but we can sometimes people call it sanity check. So you have checklist, and you run the checklist. So does it, can you install it? Okay, does it save files? Does it send messages? Or whatever is important for that specific application. So checklist. Test matrices. We just looked at one test matrix here. Test design specification. Test design, the idea of test design is to provide coverage. Your test design is good if nothing was forgotten and everything was included, and so everything was tested. If something was not tested, then your test design has a problem. So the idea of test design is coverage. End-to-end tests are equivalent, QA equivalents of use cases. So use case is a format for requirements, business requirements. So use case is basically how user interacts with the system. In terms of business, it has business meaning. So you create checking account, or you process transaction, as a retail, as a cashier, you process the something people buy in a store. So that kind. So if you take use case and give it to testers, and testers will say, okay, let's try to see if use case is implemented. Use case is a requirement. Let's see. That is going to be end-to-end test. And end-to-end test is a system-level test. We do not go into detail. We say, okay, the whole thing failed. I don't know where it failed, and I don't care where it failed. It's a system-level test. I'm not looking at specific unit or specific feature. It is a usability thing. Test summary reports. Well, whatever reporting procedures are established by your management, so it will determine the format for test summary reports. We definitely do some summaries, especially for meetings. So when people come to the meetings, they have to see bigger picture. So what do we have? How many bugs we have outstanding? So severity critical, severity serious, severity minor, last week, this week, what is the plan for the next week, and this and that. So test reporting is a part of what you get out of your bug tracking systems normally. Tests, okay, bug report. You know what's bug report. So bug report is one of the most common documents we write because we have to inform developers about bugs. But it is a test. It is a QA document. Describe risk analysis. Well, there is a definition here. It says risk analysis means the actions taken to avoid things going wrong on software development project. Things that might negatively impact the scope, quality, timeliness, or cost of a project. That is the definition. Details. It is a shared responsibility among everyone involved in a project. It is not just QA, guys. It's not business people. It is not business analysts. It is not just management. Each of us contributes to risk analysis at his or her level. It is a shared responsibility. Good. How will you write test cases for this and that? Boundary conditions. So let me stop on boundary conditions. Why and how? Why do we test boundary conditions? First of all, we have two methodologies for developing test cases. We have to understand that. Let me go into that a little bit. There are two methodologies. One methodology is called equivalence partitioning. And equivalence partitioning says, okay, let's group all the possible inputs into classes, equivalence classes. So as a result of equivalence partitioning, we get equivalence classes. What is equivalence class? Group of inputs which are resulting in exact same output. So if you want to test the class, it's enough to take one member of the class. They're all the same. That is how we build them. We build them to provide same output. So take one and test. Another methodology we have is called boundary analysis. Boundary analysis. And what is boundary analysis about? It says boundary is the place where we move from one equivalence class to another equivalence class. Boundary is the place where application changes the behavior. So how do we test that? We go to the nearest proximity of the boundary and we test on one side and on another side of the boundary. Nearest proximity. So why do we do that? Because lots of bugs are happening right on the boundaries. Together, equivalence partitioning and boundary analysis, those two methodologies help us to develop test cases. Anytime we have a class, we take one test case. Anytime we see boundary, we have two test cases. That is how we decide which test cases we have. And that is how professional testers are distinguished from just people who test software because they like to test software, because they are just paid to test software and they have no idea what they are doing. So when they ask you, why do we care about testing boundary conditions? Because lots of bugs are happening right there. How do we test boundary conditions? We take nearest proximity of the boundary on one side and on another side, and we try those. So we have two test cases, and we make sure that behavior changes. That is why. Okay, what else? I think we are pretty much done with the questions here, and we can turn to the test results. Let me refresh the screen in case we've got more answers. Yeah, actually we've got one more answer while I was talking. So let's see. So what is the question number one? It says, what is test case, guys? And we've got 50% coming with the wrong answer. Step-by-step instruction on how software feature should be tested is a poor answer. First of all, it doesn't have to be step-by-step. And it is not how software feature should be tested. It's about requirements. How requirements should be verified. Specific requirement. It is not good one. That definition comes from people who do not develop test cases. It comes from people who execute test cases developed by someone else. I found that one on internet, and it's kind of popular. It's not good. And most of the people who are communicating on internet about software testing, I would say in between 80 to 85% are people working offshore. They are not working in the United States, and they do not live in the United States. And that is how most of them would define test cases. That is how we do that. Set of conditions and or variables under which tester will determine if requirement upon an application is satisfied. Test case is about requirements. It's not about feature tested. Okay, it's about requirements. Here is the definition. Okay. Now we have someone who says it's a short description of a bug report. Guys, test case has nothing to do with bug report. Really, I mean, if it fails, definitely you will write a bug report, but it's not that much, related. Another way to refer to test scenario has no meaning. Test scenario, test script, checking, those three things have no meaning. Steps of bug report to be executed for verification of fixed bug. Guys, dead wrong. I mean, dead wrong. Keep going. What is included into the test case? Steps to reproduce. No steps to reproduce in test case. In bug report, yes. In test case, no. Test case ID. Somehow we do not have uniformity here, so still we have one person disagreeing with ID. Okay. An instruction on how to resolve the problem. No, not even close. A pass-fail indication. Not at the time of planning. An instruction on how to get from the application base state to the verifiable application output. Yes, absolutely. Expected result. So expected result is something everybody agrees upon. Okay. Short description. Guys, what are you talking? 5 people out of 6 are saying test case has short description. Bug report has short description. Test case does not have short description. Okay, an actual result. No actual result at the time of planning. Okay, what are the most common documents written by testers? Bug reports, absolutely. Steps to reproduce is not a document. Guys, 33%. It's not a document. Test cases, good. Test matrices, absolutely. We write test matrices. Traceability matrices. Traceability matrices are important to make sure, to track which requirements have been implemented. Is it important to QA? Absolutely, because we have to know what to test and what not to test. Doesn't mean QA is exactly where traceability matrices are happening. And normally not, but it might be. So what I would say, traceability matrices are not typically the document developed in QA, but it is important for QA. Test plans. Guys, just 50% are saying the test plan is developed by testers. Who else will develop your test plan? Developers, business analysts, systems administrators. I mean, who is supposed to do your test plan? End-to-end tests, probably because you don't know much about end-to-end tests. So it is a test. Tests are developed by tests. Requirements definitely are not our business, and use cases are requirements, business requirements. Good. Which documents would you refer to when creating test cases? Honestly, guys, each and every document which gives you an idea how the application is being used and how the application is being implemented, used and implemented, those things are priceless, okay? You derive lots of test cases out of how people use it and how developers should do it. So I would say all business and technical documentation available is a very good answer. Believe me, if they give you all the documentation, you will use each and every piece of it. My product knowledge, well, it's about requirements, you know. Whatever knowledge you have, it is still not exactly the requirements. It's a reflection of requirements in your mind. Or your idea of requirements is not exactly the requirements. My intuition, guys, intuition is important. Product knowledge is important. Don't get me wrong. All those things are important. They help you to write better test cases, but you still need requirements. Product requirements document. Product requirement document, unlike business requirements document, is focused on product itself. So it is developed for, that document goes to developers, so they know what to develop. Business requirements document is about customers, future customers, how they're going to use that product. So if we have good business requirement document, now we can really develop good product requirement document. So now we know which product we need to satisfy those business users. So we definitely want product requirement documents. Meeting notes, when we have technical meetings, they email notes to you, to everybody, with summary of what happened at that meeting. And I can tell you that my advice, guys, never ever remove emails with meeting notes from your mailbox, because you never know when you might go and really say, let's take a look at that. So it might have some information related to test cases as well. It's very valuable and it might be helpful. We develop, because what we discuss at meetings, guys, if you have engineering meetings, what do we discuss? Functionality, you know, dependencies, so priorities. We develop the product first and then write the requirements. We don't want that. Emails from customers. Normally it doesn't get to you unless technical support or customer support will send it to you, but normally you don't have that. You don't have access to that. So business requirement document, absolutely you want that. Functional specification, that is the document you want most. Functional specification is a very detailed description of feature by feature by feature. That is where you get all your test cases, guys. In functional specification, each word, each sentence, each idea gives you lots of test cases right away. That is the closest to test cases document because it talks exactly about features and details of their implementation. So you want that one. That is the one you want most. Manuals and help. Definitely manuals and help are not given to users to develop software. They are given to users to use software. But at least it explains how software should be used. It gives you better idea of possible combinations of different things. So definitely you can derive lots of test cases from that. Absolutely. It clarifies the requirements. It makes them practical. It translates requirements into the language of a user, so then you can use it for test cases. Use cases, you do not use use cases to develop test cases. You might convert use cases into end-to-end tests, but hypothetically, yes, you can, if you understand how people use the product, it will give you better idea how to test certain things. Yeah, eventually you can bring it to the level of test cases. Test design doesn't give you much. Test design is about coverage. So each and every piece is included, so we do not miss anything in our coverage. So test design doesn't give you much. Third-party publications, books published by independent authors. Let's say you test something, and that feature, the feature you test, exists in Microsoft Word. And your document is, your application is not documented very well because it's a startup, they have no time and money. Okay, take a book written on Microsoft Word and read exactly that chapter which talks about that feature, and now you can test. So definitely third-party publications are similar to manuals and help. It is pretty much same thing, just written for another application which has the same features. That's it. So the importance of that is as low or as high as manuals and help. Okay, let's see the easy one, easy targets. What is the difference between test case and test plan? We discussed that. So it's not about test plan which needs to be approved by QA manager. Maybe it is a case, but it's not what makes the difference between these two. Test cases are integral part of test plan. No way. Test cases are not an integral part. The most detailed piece cannot be a part of the most generic document. They are different. Test cases are written by testers, test plan by QA manager. Not really. Testers participate in writing the test plan. Definitely management and senior level people will contribute more to test plans than testers. It's true. And testers will contribute more to test cases than management, which is also true, but it's not the major difference. The nature of the document is important. So test cases are about finding bugs, test plan is about preventing them. No. Test cases is not about finding bugs. Test case is about verifying requirements. If you verify requirements and the requirements are implemented properly, it's not like you waste your time. If you go to U-Test and you execute test procedures, they pay you money for executing their tests. Listen, what if you find no bug? They still pay you money. You know what? There is certain value in making sure the feature is implemented. And that is what test case is about. It is not about finding bugs. And the test plan is not preventing bugs. Test plan is about planning the effort. It's not about bugs specifically. Yeah? Test cases are about meeting requirements, which is true. And test plan is about test strategy, schedule, resources, which is true. So that is the right answer. And we have most of the votes here. Describe risk analysis. Well, here is the answer, and you've done a pretty good job here. So actions taken to avoid things. that might negatively impact the scope, quality, timeliness, or cost of a project. True. Shared responsibility among everyone. Okay, we have 50% here, but again, it is true as well. It's not about business analyst. Business analyst has nothing to do with that. I mean, business analyst does risk analysis at his level. And what is the level of risk at the business analyst level? If business analyst comes with poor requirements, what is the risk? We develop poor software, then we have to redo requirements, we have to redo the software, and so it will cost more money, it will take longer time, it might be lower quality because of things being redone. When you redo things, it doesn't improve the quality. It's opposite, actually. Okay, what is test matrix? We know that. It's data collection mechanism. I like that one. It says matrix of tests. No, it is not matrix of tests. Guys, what are you doing there? Data collection mechanism. Very good. Now, I want to bring your attention to the last answer here. It says spreadsheet for organizing and presenting test data. It is a spreadsheet. I do not mind against spreadsheet. For organizing data, yeah, it's cool. Presenting data, maybe. Test data is dead wrong. Dead wrong. Yesterday I was talking about that same thing in a class in the morning, and we came to very interesting conversations there. Now, you remember the test matrix I just did in here in Notepad with operating systems and browsers. So here is the matrix. Now, what is test data? Not each and every data is a test data. Test data is something I need for my test. For example, if I test searching capabilities of a database, I need some database, and the database fixed, so the data doesn't change because I have to know the result, and the result should be the same anytime I run the test. So we need some database, and we decide what we put in that database, and then we know exactly if the software works right, what that database should bring us as a result of this search and that search and that search. When it comes to the matrix on my screen, what we can do, we can create test page, which is test data page. And that page will have, let's say, all the risky components which might go wrong on web application. I'm not sure what it is. I mean, images, list boxes, combo boxes, JavaScript, features developed in whatever it might be. I can put all of that, whatever is questionable, I can put it on one page, and then I apply test matrix to that test data. See what happens? We have test data in the form of page, and then we have test matrix to use against the test data. So that is what happens here. So test data, we do not want the test data. Okay, and okay, what is test plan? You are pretty good. You are saying documents that describes objective, scope, approach, and focus. Good. Collective work of QA team on software testing risks. Guys, I like that collective work of QA team. I do not like software testing risks. Test plan is not specifically about taking care of risks. So risks are one of the considerations, but it's not exactly what test plan is about. So lots of questions, interview questions, are provocative in nature. They look like something obviously nice, and you are well-intended people, guys. You do not want to really expect anything bad, in questions, but questions are built to fail, not to pass. Especially in the quizzes I give you, I build those quizzes so you fail. And when you fail, we have a good chance to discuss why you failed. I mean, what happened? What's wrong? What is that subtle detail you didn't pay attention to? Okay. In that specific case, the person who said yes to that answer didn't pay attention to software testing risks. And test plan is not about software testing risks. But overall, I mean, it's a pretty good test you've done. My only kind of frustration comes from the fact that instead of 15 people taking part, we have just 5 or 6, which is not good. What does test plan include? Wow. Steps to reproduce. Guys, no steps to reproduce in the test plan, obviously. Personnel allocation, absolutely. Expected result, no way. It's not a test case, it's a test plan. Testing priorities and focus, absolutely. Feedback from company management, nobody says that. Risk analysis, absolutely, it's a part of it. Test matrices, I don't think so. Could be, there is a chance. Test scenarios, makes no sense, no meaning. Use cases, definitely not. Use cases are requirements. And real estate appraisal report, I don't know what you might mean under real estate, but the one I know is not a part of test case or test plan. So guys, we are in a good shape. Let me make sure we have, okay, if you have a question, just raise your hand and we will make sure you can address your question. Anton, we are listening to you.
Yes, I have just a couple questions. First one about last session in ClickBerry.
Yes.
Will be posted or not? How we can get links?
I think it is posted, no?
No, the last one.
Wait a second. It was session number 3 or 4? 3?
4.
Are you positive?
I guess 4.
Because I remember posting the session and here, session 3.
No, I think it's supposed to be session 4, with where we'll start working in Excel.
Well, I don't know. Let's take a look at the date. But I just posted session 3. I will talk to Olga and see because I was sure you have it. Okay, let me take a look. But okay, what is another question?
Yes, next one about resume. How we can get example?
Okay, it says May 10th. Okay, it was May 10th. Yeah, guys, there should be another one. Okay.
And the last one question about
resume. Okay, this week, guys, till the end of this week, everybody who sent me your resume will get the resume. I will try to do maybe 2 or 3 today. So we are a little bit late with resumes. I apologize. I'll try to do it as soon as possible. This week, everybody will have the resume. Okay. Any more questions?
One more?
Yeah.
Yeah, the last one about reference. It's funny, but how we can get.
Okay, no problem. As soon as you get resume, based on what's in your resume, we will have the reference. But specifically to the ClickBerry project, Olga is an employee of ClickBerry. She manages the US team. So she is one of your references, and then you might be references to each other as well as co-workers on that project. So just make sure people speak English nicely so they can really talk about you. And Olga is your primary reference, and so you get more references from the team here on the project, and maybe from previous slides we have to look what else will be on your resume. So they might need references from previous projects or employments. We'll take a look. It is a part of your preparation to the job market activities. We will do that for sure. Don't worry. I mean, you will all have that question answered.
Is it have any chance to see how it looks like? I mean,
what looks like?
I mean reference.
A reference looks like a phone conversation. They call you and they say, okay, would you please tell me about this person? So and I would say 9 references out of 10 look like, would you please confirm the dates of employment and the title of the person? That's it. and very rarely it goes into details. What kind of work, what kind of qualities, maybe 1 out of 10.
It's a little bit complicated if I'm located in Maryland and I have reference from California.
And in today's world, you will not surprise anybody.
No, okay, thank you so much.
Okay, guys, so we will discuss in Skype if we meet next Monday or not. It's up to you. I mean, I can do it. Okay, thank you very much.